So the last two bombshells I want to get into have to do with Epstein's Israel connection. And the first thing is about an Israeli spy that supposedly stayed with Epstein in Manhattan. This comes from the November 2025 files dump as well. This is an excerpt from an article titled "Israeli Spy Stayed for Weeks at a Time with Jeffrey Epstein in Manhattan." This is Drop Site News by Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein. Yoni Koren, an Israeli military intelligence officer, stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan apartment on at least 3 occasions, including once in February 2013, while working as a senior aide to then Israeli Minister of Defense Ehud Barak. Yoni Koren made his intelligence career working in covert operations alongside the Mossad and remained a lieutenant colonel in reserve duty after he officially left the intelligence directorate. He stayed in Epstein's apartment again for 2 weeks in October 2014 and a third time for 10 more days in September 2015. On February 14th, 2015, Barak sent a note to Epstein. "Hi, Jeff. Will you be in New York during the coming week?" Barak wrote. Epstein replied, "I'm flying back to New York Tuesday to meet with you." Epstein's personal calendars released by the U.S. House Oversight Committee last month shows that they ultimately met on February 19th at 5 p.m. But the two men had a second last-minute meeting that wasn't reflected on calendars released by Congress. According to hacked emails, Barak arranged an urgent appointment with Epstein on February 20th, writing, "Are you still in town? Can we meet again for 30 minutes today or tomorrow?" Epstein's meetings had run late the previous night and he'd already missed his flight to Paris, but he agreed to meet. 3 days later, on February 23rd, Barak sent Epstein an email titled Yoni Account Info, acc.info, containing wire transfer details for a Citibank account belonging to Itzhak Koren. The purpose of the wire transfer is not apparent from the email records. That Saturday, February 28th, Barak sent an unusual email to Koren containing detailed instructions to pick up a package from the Hyatt 48 Lex Hotel in Manhattan's Midtown East. According to the email, Barak purchased red Beats by Dre headphones on February 24th, the day after sending Epstein the bank details. Barak instructed Yoni to collect a package containing the headphones from the hotel and return them to the Apple Store on the Upper West Side. According to Barak's message, attached to the box was an envelope with a receipt and a bank card. Barak wrote Koren, "To get a refund in cash, you'll need the card. Email me when you collect it." So why is a Mossad-connected aide to a sitting defense minister repeatedly staying at a sex offender's apartment? Epstein, again, pled guilty to soliciting a minor in 2008, and these visits spanned 7 years later, 5 to 7 years later, from 2013 to 2015, well after these convictions and not only allegations, but Epstein pleading guilty. There was a high-level intelligence official choosing to stay with Epstein at Manhattan. A very interesting choice. And also to go back to the Beats by Dre errand, where this like handoff to exchange the headphones for return, and then there's a card attached to the headphones, and then take that and exchange it for cash. Like this is like a cover move out of the Bourne Identity, like return an item, collect the cash using a bank card, move money around without digital alerts, which I assume is the object of why they were doing this sort of like triangle of commerce with like Beats by Dre, bank card, cash. Like you didn't want someone to pick up or have a record of what was on that card or who it was tied to. So that allows you to move through the digital verse without triggering any alerts. But this is something like legitimately out of a spy movie. And it feels like we're watching the darkest, most fucked up version of a blackmail spy movie when we talk about Epstein. And Epstein is like the number one pedophilic overlord of this dark triad network. Another thing that I think is super interesting is the fact that Epstein was working with intelligence so much, he seems to have been deeply embedded with high-level intelligence officials. And Epstein's cover story is that he was like this financial wizard. He was a high school, college dropout, and then got on Wall Street, and then all of a sudden he's managing Lex Wessner's billions, and he's some financial guru that billionaires come to for money advice. Intelligence agencies don't need financial wizards. So Epstein's cosplay as like this hedge fund manager wouldn't be why an intelligence agency would approach Epstein. An intelligence agency needs brokers of leverage and brokers of power, which again, I think is Epstein's true skill set. Epstein was great at controlling environments, obtaining blackmail material, intros to shadowy figures, and introducing people of underworlds to each other, and using his social status to manipulate those deals and leverage deals, and then creating deniable communications channels, which we see with this Beats by Dre sort of like spy movie instance. But that to me is why Epstein seems like he would be an asset to an intelligence agency, not because he's a financial guru. Like an intelligence agency, they could have access to any financial guru on the planet if they wanted to, but like they needed someone who was a true power broker, who was a true leverage tactician, like Epstein seems to have been. An intelligence agency has overlap in needs with what Epstein could provide, which is those controlled environments, blackmail, the shadowy underworld connections, and deniable communications channels. The next Israel-Epstein connection is Epstein apparently being a cyber weapons middleman between the Rothschilds and Israel. I'm not making this up. Apparently, Epstein was a middleman between the Rothschilds Bank and Israel. This comes from the November 2025 files dump as well. The title of this article is Jeffrey Epstein Pursued Swiss Rothschild Bank to Finance Israeli Cyber Weapons Empire. Jeffrey Epstein was a cyber weapons middleman. This is a drop site news article, again by Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein. The bank, Edmund de Rothschild's group, remained vague about the actual nature of its relationship with the convicted sex trafficker Epstein. Newly released documents reveal that Epstein and de Rothschild's personal relationship was much closer than the bank previously acknowledged. According to emails released by the U.S. House Oversight Committee on November 12, Epstein planned to see a Broadway play with Ariane de Rothschild in January 2014 and scheduled a private trip with her to Montreal that September. A second set of documents, the leaked inbox of former Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak, hacked by Handala and uploaded by nonprofit whistleblower Distributed Denial of Secrets, sheds light on Epstein's effort to leverage his personal friendship with de Rothschild to raise funds for the development of Israeli cyber weapons. After Barak's retirement from government in 2013, he recruited Pavel Gurvich, a graduate of the Israel Defense Forces Secretive Unit 81 Technology Unit, to source cyber weapon startups from the Israeli intelligence community. Gurvich did not respond to a request for comment. Private communications between Barak and Gurvich show discussions about a wide range of cyber weapons concepts drawn from Israeli military research, inspired in part by the astonishing scope of U.S. global surveillance apparatus revealed by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden in 2013. Epstein pushed forward a plan to finance Israeli, quote, offensive cyber startups with the hope of winning de Rothschild's support. Epstein often played the role of middleman, handing off messages between the banker and the former prime minister. In one note, Epstein passed along a tantalizing offer from de Rothschilds to Barak. Quote, if Ehud wants to make serious money, he will have to build a relationship with me. Take time so that we can truly understand one another. Barak asked for advice, deferring to Epstein's supposed expertise on women. I'm ready, he wrote, but I need your advice regarding how. Ladies is your forte. Why would Jeffrey Epstein's expertise in ladies be the key to unlocking a $1 billion cybersecurity funding pipeline for Israel? That seems odd. If you're talking cybersecurities and weapons and dark shadowy shit, but okay, maybe Epstein was a middleman and had these connections behind closed doors with people in cyberspace and weapons and intelligence officials. Sure, back channel access for Epstein as a middleman. Why does he need advice? Why does Ehud Barak, rather, the former prime minister of Israel, need advice relating to Epstein's forte in ladies for a cybersecurity deal? That's a good question that has yet to be answered. I do understand that cybersecurity and cyber weapons is where the lines blur deeply between private money and state power. So this is something like this is a communications example where we start to see Epstein's real skill set and where Epstein's real expertise lied. To me, like I said, I've repeated this a few times, but I really want to hammer this point home. Epstein's true expertise was elite power broker, fixer, and probably blackmailer. He was not some financial guru, most likely. He was cosplaying as a hedge fund financial guru / manager to the world as his public image. But I believe behind the scenes, his true expertise was this elite power broker, the fixer, and blackmailer. Epstein was this epicenter of heads of state, high-level intelligence officials, billionaire Swiss bankers. He was able to leverage these connections and develop these relationships with people in order to further his own cause of being this elite power broker. His true genius, his true skill set, the true quote unquote art of Jeffrey Epstein, to me, is he was a universal adapter for the global elite. If you take all of the groups of elites, you take the billionaires, you take intelligence, you take prime ministers, presidents, scientists, authors, everyone with global elite status, Jeffrey Epstein was a universal adapter for them. That was his true calling. Epstein converted reputations like that adapter. He converted access, he converted risks so people and power could flow through Epstein. But the flip side of it, the dark side of it, is once you plugged into Epstein, once you chose to plug into his network, whether, if it was by choice or if it was by force, it's not clear in many of these cases. Epstein now had access to you. So you might plug into Epstein for something of your own benefit to make a relationship with someone who's not in your global elite circle, but maybe there's another elite, like maybe you're an intelligence official who wants to make a deal with an author, or you're a president who wants to make a deal with another prime minister, a scientist who wants to connect to an intelligence official. Like, I think these relationships that cross boundaries, that cross lines, all part of the global elite, but different spheres of the elite, they would plug into Epstein. But then once you were plugged in, Epstein could now assert his power back onto you, his leverage, his control, his blackmail. So it was a two-way street. You could use Epstein for what he did, which was, aside from the pedophilic blackmail network and recruiting young girls and underage girls, which was to use him for his network of power. Those to me were two separate things. Like, he had this, he had the island, he had the young girls. He was using Ghislaine to recruit. And again, this is speculation. I'm going off the things that we've discussed and the information that's come to light. But you have like the blackmail pedophilic network, but then you also have Epstein's relationships outside of the young women, which is like being that leverage power broker between the global elite. So like he could provide young women to the elite, but then he'd also connect the elite to the other elite. And I think that was really the thing that he thrived in. Why that Epstein, when he kept, you know, he kept pleading guilty to these crimes, and the allegations kept rolling and rolling in. Why he kept elevating was because, one, he had the blackmail, but then two, he was this like sphere of influence for the global elites and all these different pockets of people who held elite status. That was his true, genius, skill set, art, whatever you want to call it. Just purely looking at Epstein as an operator. Not obviously what he did was horrific. His victims deserve justice, but purely looking at Epstein as like what he did as a function for that elite underworld, that was it. The universal adapter where anyone can plug in, but then once you plugged in, now he had access to you and he can draw on you and he can leverage his control and power and blackmail just like you would leverage Epstein for your own good. Or not for your own good, for your own interest. So it was a two-way street.